All right, how's it going, everybody? Let some more people file into the stream here. This is going to be a follow-up to the video I did yesterday. If you haven't seen it, link will be in the description there. Let's get some more people in the chat here. Hey, Pravada, how's it going? Now, I was supposed to have a guest, but she's AFK, so we'll see if she joins in. So if you have any questions, there we go.
Hello.
You're a minute late. You're fired.
Don't tell Tom Anderson in the chat that I was a minute late because he's very astute when it comes to noticing those things. I was so close. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Everyone here should know Kayla by now. So
hello, everyone.
I decided to take JF's advice and tone down the autism a little bit with a woman. So we'll get a more human perspective on this, I guess. So yeah, like I said, everyone, if you've got questions for me, you can put them in the chat now, or you can, if you're watching this after the fact, you can leave it in the comment section and I'll try and get back to responding to it. But I have a list of questions here that we're going to go through and try and get, a little bit better sense of how this all goes, because the video I made yesterday was already 30 minutes long. I didn't have time to address everything, so we're going to do that today.
Well, and I saw your video yesterday. I watched it last night before bed, and I was incredibly impressed with it. It wasn't even necessarily the attention to detail in terms of what. Well, it was attention to detail, right? It was actually thinking about all of these aspects that a society just naturally it needs to focus on, right? Kind of these little importances, these little important things, but yeah, it's just they're things that nobody ever thinks about, and yet they really are important. So I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of things I left out that I came across today, so maybe we'll do another follow-up video. But Korux, I had her first. I'm not stealing JF's co-host. I had her first.
I don't think JF's like he's not running to the phone. Don't worry.
Yeah. I think he's still trying to get some things sorted out. Before we start, how was your experience on his show?
It was good. I tried really hard not to spurg out, not to kind of mince words. I was a little thrown off. I'm going to be, honest. I was a little thrown off by the radio host guest.
Martel, yeah.
Yes, he was very high energy. He was very nice. But, I didn't want to match his level of energy and have it come off as either fake sounding or annoying sounding. And so I was like, that's all right. I can be low energy Kayla for this stream. That's okay. I'll come back. I'm gonna go back on, be my charming self. But yes, it was a very nice experience.
Did you shill your live streams at the end? I know that Martel went on his big spiel about what he's up to.
You know what? I didn't shill anything, and I mean, there was only I got 30 seconds left at the end. And so I was just like, okay, what am I going to say? And I was like, fuck it. I'm going to say the 14 words. And I didn't know what a big deal it was, that Lauren Rose didn't say it or anything. Pravada just said hey, you should say those things because he knows that I absolutely believe in them. And I think there's no shame ever in saying them.
Right, yeah, and that's the thing that most people are off put by Lauren is she's more of just a general conservative, like a paleo conservative, But they did really enjoy that.
Kind of she's a much prettier Pat Buchanan.
Oh no!
No, I'm joking. Don't tell her I said that.
Oh no. Well, anyway, was there any questions that you had about the video, or anything you'd like to say before I get to my questions?
No, I'd like to see what you have to say. I like to see where your mind goes with this topic, because it does think a lot different. It focuses on completely different aspects than I would. So I'd like to stay on that that train of thought. I want to see where you go with this.
Sure. And for everyone who isn't on the Discord, the link is in the description. Last night we had a wonderful conversation with a bunch of people about this, and we also were just kind of hanging out doing online tests and just kind of shooting the shit. We had a good time. So if you're not on the Discord, come and join it. You can talk to me and give me video ideas and free content. So
There you go. No, it's always nice to help. You know, I think a lot of people watching, they actually do really like to help and contribute and support in whatever way that they can. And some people are really good with ideas and with research. And so, yeah, I encourage you all to do that.
Pravada says, "Did you hear that Zyger got doxxed yesterday? Who is Zyger? Should I know who that is?"
When I first heard that, I didn't know who it was either. I believe he works for the Stormer, right? If I'm remembering this correctly.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know who this is.
Oh, okay. Pravada is saying, yep, it's a Stormer.
Oh, well, I don't keep up with the Stormer or anyone involved, so I don't know who it is. Hey, the guy. How you doing? Yeah, it sounds more like chat logs got released. That's why you got to be real careful when you're chatting with people, because you don't know who's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's one of the more famous writers. Okay, yeah, see, I don't read the Stormer or anything like that, so I'm kind of out of the loop as far as that's concerned. Spoiler alert, this is Big Cat Kayla. She's an ethno-nationalist woman, so...
Hi, spoiler alert. I've seen spoiler before. I don't know where. It was in a chat somewhere, but I've seen you.
Todd Whalen says, "I think the real question is, are trans people the real traditionalists because they are sexist?" Good question. I don't think we'll be getting that today, but good question.
That's a level of autism where I'm just listening to that question. I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah, that's
hold on here.
That's out there.
What else do I need to turn up to understand that just right off the bat?
Right. Liberty Sun says, "Don't trust Discord. Lots of alt-right getting doxxed from Discord records." Yeah, I mean, anyone who posts personal information on Discord is, I mean, you pretty much deserve it.
Yes, exactly. I'm sorry. I mean, you never want to wish anyone any harm or doxing or anything like that, right? But at the same time, you know, it's the internet. Like, that's it there. It's the internet. Don't ever put personal information, ever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can use Discord, that's fine. Just don't be a retard about it. Just like everything else on the internet. Not that hard. The only reason I use Discord is because it's easier to get in touch with people than like Goy chat or anything like that. So he was very sloppy, Pravada. I'll agree with that. Okay, so let's get to some of the questions. These are taken from the video comments itself and some questions I got afterwards on Discord. So the first one is, what do we do with Alaska and Hawaii? Well, I tried to answer this in the description of the video, but you fucking lazy plebs didn't look at the description of the video. So
I'm a lazy pleb too, so I thought.
All right. Well, I'll go into it a little bit further. Let's start with Hawaii because it's a bit of an easier answer. Hawaii is not something necessary. It's not an economic liability like Alaska is. It has some military bases. It's important for the Pacific Fleet, but I'm not concerned with the Pacific, and we'll get there. It has virtually nothing but tourism, maybe some sentimental value. I don't even know why the U.S. owns it in the first place. You know, maybe manifest destiny a little bit too much. But as far as I'm concerned, at the negotiation table, I would give it up to America 2.0, which is sort of the Western states that I outlined. Now, what I would be in favor of in an optimal situation is to give it back to the native people there so that they'll shut the fuck up about, you know, colonialism, imperialism, all that dumb shit. So yeah, as far as Hawaii is concerned, it serves no strategic purpose as far as I'm concerned, and I'd rather see it back in the hands of the natives. The Japs can take it if they want to. They'll have to bring that up with the US 2.0. I'm not particularly concerned with it. Let's see.
I think people in the Ethnostate would want some sort of a deal made with Japan, like send us, 1,000 of your prettiest anime girls, and you can have Hawaii.
Oh no!
I can see that at the table. Oh boy.
Well, pretty much anything we don't want is going to be given to the US 2.0, and Hawaii is one of them.
Yeah, I don't see much of a point for it. I mean, I just sincerely don't.
Yep, yep.
Welfare programs that, I don't know, their people are extremely dependent on the state, and the state gives them a lot of money. So I wouldn't want to take up, it's like taking up someone else's debt. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, same thing with Puerto Rico. Serves zero benefit to us. The US 2.0 can keep it, or they can give it back to Spain, or they can let the monkeys there keep it. It's not my business whatsoever. And yeah, Pravada's right. It could be used as a bargaining chip, maybe if you're going into power play scenarios, but Riley Wolf says, can balkanization happen peacefully? That is a pressing question in my eyes. If not, how serious would the conflict be? Crippling? Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, but I'm with you. I'm with you, Riley. Like, there's nothing I would prefer more than absolute peaceful separation.
For sure. But now on to the question of Alaska. The problem with Alaska is that it's so far away from the rest of the nation that only something like the United States can actually defend it if it were to come into conflict. And this is one thing, part of the strategic decisions that you have to make is that, okay, can we expend resources getting people there, defending it? What is the economic interest? I think it's important to keep hold of Alaska, but ultimately it's not going to be the deciding factor in whether or not we form an ethnostate or not. I'd rather have the ethnostate and have to give up Alaska to Canada or the US 2.0 or something. I'd rather use it as a bargaining chip. And for the most part, it really, like, the oil and things are good. The minerals that are extracted there are pretty good, but most of it's empty wilderness. There's room for expansion, but honestly, I don't think it's worth it in the long run, because we're going to stop being so reliant on these non-renewable energy sources. So I think there's less value than people give it credit for. Mamer, can you live without pineapple pizza? The Dole Company is on Hawaii. I actually like pineapple on pizza. It's actually really good. If you've never had pineapple pizza, put some pineapple on there and then put a little bit of bacon on there. It's fucking fantastic.
You guys can keep your pineapples.
Pineapple's good. What are you talking about?
I'm not a fan. Just something about. I'm not a fan of the pineapple.
Oh, right? Come on, dropped. Yes, thank you, Mulek. Dropped. No, the whole pizza question. It's okay. I have no qualms. Let's see here. You should take a look at the 3 Canadian.
In the chat.
Yeah, you should take a look at the 3 Canadian provinces: Alberta, Sask, and Manitoba. You should line up with your map. Tons of resources. Yeah, we'll get to Canada. I'll talk about the Canada question. Do you think it's important to have an avenue to the Pacific, trading East Asia, Australia? Yeah, we'll get to that as well. But there's nothing wrong with pineapple on pizza. Calm down, you degenerates.
See? They're on my side. There is a problem.
The thing is, if the ethnostate wants to ban pineapple on pizza, I don't give a shit. I just think it's not as bad as some people say. But anyway.
That'd be sad if that's the one thing that we all, somehow can agree on. Like, that's the one thing that really unites the right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me.
So, yeah, like I said, Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, basically, and Guam as well, all of the former U.S. colonies, I'm more in favor of giving them to the US 2.0 and letting them deal with it, or using them as a bargaining chip or something to that extent, because none of them are economic liabilities like the mainland are. Let's see. I'm Canadian. I should take this seriously. Nope. Great. Yash says no pineapple pizza. That's gross. Yep. I'm sorry that you have plebeian taste buds. Ban porn instead of pineapples, to be honest. Says it looks. Let Guam tip over. Yeah, all those fat fucks over in Guam, they're going to sink into the ocean.
We'll just let them keep their military, we'll just put a few more little military bases on there and then bloop.
Yeah, pretty much.
How do you get into Congress when you're that freaking stupid? Oh, wait, don't answer that. We'll move on.
Liberty Sun says, how would you keep the new state separate from the rest of the country? Also, how would you keep the government from getting co-opted in 1 to 2 generations? You build a real big fucking border wall. You basically make it the DMZ and you keep people the fuck out. That's all there is to it. And then how would you keep the government from getting co-opted in 1 or 2 generations? Well, I mean, the thing about our current situation is that culture comes from the family, and the family unit has been degraded to such an extent that culture is no longer passed through the family. It's passed through the TV and the internet and the school systems and academia and all of this. There's no values being put into children's heads from a young age. So the reason why human society was relatively stable, and I say that, I know wars, revolutions, constant fights over power, that's more stable than the situation that we find ourselves in today, where the tides shift every 5 to 10 years. That's an incredible amount of time for us to be making these huge political shifts one way or the other. And the reason is because people can be swayed very, very easily because they're not instilled with any values. And for example, and I'm going to call them out here, and I apologize, but last night we were doing moral values tests, right? And we had a young guy on from Australia, and he really didn't know how to answer these moral questions. And a lot of people are like that. If you give them a test of morality, they don't really know what to do because no one's ever told them about that. No one's ever sat them down and said, hey, this is our moral value system. These are the things that you should believe in. This is how we think. This is our culture. People don't do that anymore. So if you want to keep your population from being co-opted, you just have to have a strong family unit. That's my thoughts on that.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, when I was just even, when you're asked about morality, a lot of the time, it just throws you off, right? Because you can act in ways that you feel are morally right or morally justified. But when someone says, okay, well, actually articulate, what morality is to you. And you're absolutely right. We're not being taught those things. You normally have to do it through self-discovery in some sort.
Excuse me. And yeah, a lot of the current moral climate is relativism, whether it's religious relativism, something like the divine command theory or moral absolutism, or it's cultural relativism or racial relativism as far as morals are concerned. The idea that there is an objective moral value system has been degraded to the point where if I say something like, I can make a truth claim about someone's values and I can make a moral judgment about people's behavior, I get looked at like I'm literally Hitler. So that also is a problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've completely banished shame and the ability to judge other people, and whether it's on just, I guess, whether it's on moral lines or not, but nonetheless, that seems to be completely out of any dialogue that we're allowed to have these days.
Korak says pineapple pizza equals bad optics. Yeah, I can't say I disagree with you there.
And then Kayla in the chat agreed. She agreed. Oh, and here we go. Hi, Tom Anderson. You're noticed.
Hey, Tom, you want to know something?
Yeah.
No.
I was a good girl. I was on time today. Boom. 1 o'clock on the dot.
Too much coffee. All right. Next question that I got was, what is white, black? What is Latin? These things, these ethnicities. Someone said that white isn't an ethnicity, black isn't an ethnicity, Latin isn't an ethnicity. And I'll say that you're plain wrong, and it obviously shows that you're not American. You don't understand these things. So please butt out of our conversation here. Because white in America is an ethnicity, whether you want to recognize it or not. The other outside groups, and even whites themselves, place white Americans as an ethnicity. Now, you can argue whether or not it's a racial categorization or things like that, because racial classifications are more of a, not subjective, but they're very hard to narrow down, and it is more of an issue of pragmatism. But in America, black as an ethnicity exists, white exists, and Latin/Hispanic exists, although the border jumpers are a little bit more autistic about classifying themselves by country. But I've heard people from El Salvador call themselves Mexicans, and people from Mexico calling themselves Central Americans and Latins and Hispanics. It doesn't really matter what you call them, but we all know what it means. It's like, don't pull the Sargon shit on me. We know what these groups mean. We know who these people are.
And sometimes it really is as simple as my eyes don't lie. I think sometimes people really try to make the argument much more complex, right? And that's when you really start to question whether someone is being disingenuous or not. Just because, it's like, well, are you autistic? And, are you just maybe a deep thinker, right? Or are you just trying to conflate all of, these simple points into just a mess, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So for those who don't understand what these terms are, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You're just outside the loop. So I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't throw gasoline on the dumpster fire that we're already having. These ethnicities do exist. This is how people classify themselves, regardless of whether it's true or false. This is just the reality that we find ourselves in. So when I say what is a white American, well, it's anyone of European descent that's been living in America for at least 2 or 3 generations. That's basically it. Everyone else, if they've been here for 1 generation, they're more of a European expat or refugee or whatever. Any discussion of Cloward Piven here? I'm new. I think I know who that is, but I'd ask you to clarify it for me. Even our government recognizes white as an identity group, aka Caucasians. Yeah, even going back to the founding fathers, they knew what the term white meant. It was a reflection of skin color at the time. It was people of European descent, and they preferred Protestants, so they used the term white Protestants. They didn't necessarily care if they were German, English, French in some cases, things like this. They just wanted European peoples of the Protestant faith. So that's the answer to that. And this sort of bogging down on ethnicity, blacks in America don't classify themselves as anything but black or African American, whatever term you want to use. So they're more than happy to use the term black ethnostate and then include everybody. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some people who disagree and maybe want to get more autistic about it, but the general consensus, probably 99% of black Americans agree that the term black American is perfectly fine. And that's how they're going to classify themselves racially.
Right. And they classify us as white.
Yeah, white, Caucasian.
Have an understanding.
Yeah. Turn the Tide says self-identification with 97% accuracy. Yep, that's right. That's my response to that. Now, the next question, sort of along the similar lines, is what about the Native Americans? Well, whites are Native Americans. If you're going to use the term like Indians or whatever, the people who were here before Europeans, America was established by whites for whites. So that's the Native Americans, kind of a loaded term. But as far as the Indians are concerned, I'm not concerned. I don't really care. If they want to have a seat at the negotiation table, they're more than welcome to. In fact, I'd be more than happy to concede a part of Oklahoma for them, just so they'll shut the fuck up about it. If not, they can talk to US 2.0, because I'm sure they'll love to have some more non-whites in their nation. So,
and
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go. Oh, I was just saying, and real fast, that and any Indians that if they were to be in the ethnostate, they get no more welfare, none. Like if they are going to live in there, there are going to be policies that at least slightly bring back their warrior spirit. It is so sad to see the state of those people, and even though it's because I would hate to see whites like that, right? Once these great warriors with alcoholism and suicide rates, and that is what we're starting to see, right? It's opioid and suicide rates. Some people argue whether the opioid crisis is really a crisis. I understand that. But nonetheless, like we cut off the aid for the Indians. If they're going to be in there, they're going to become men again, not just shells.
Yeah, and Matthias Thorpe says, serious question, what are we considering US 2.0 as the non-ethnostate? That is the multicultural zone for those that want to live in a multicultural society free of hate. Basically, it's going to be Mexico in 10 to 15 years. So they'll come to see the light. And if the whites maintain a semblance of majority there, they'll either break off again or join us. So it doesn't really matter. No squaws allowed. Yeah. But basically, I'm not concerned with the Native Americans. If they want to come to the negotiation table, that's fine. If not, they'll have to broker a deal with US 2.0. I reserve the right to be an imperialist on my own soil. Let's see. I will agree, though. It is very sad to see them in the state that they're in today, which is why it's another reason why we're doing this whole ethnostate thing, is so that we can bring some fucking prosperity back to all of these groups. I'm tired of the whole. This is where I disagree with Richard Spencer. He's an imperialist. I'm not. I'm tired of the white man's burden. It's not my fucking job to look after these non-whites. They can go off and do their own thing, and when their society collapses, we'll come in, clean it up, and take their land and resources from them. So
Yeah.
Let's see. What is the next question? What about denomination infighting as far as religion is concerned? Christian theocracy and the Mormon question. So the whole denomination thing, I brought it up because it's fairly important. But I think first off, if you're getting an ethnostate, obviously you're going to have ethnocentricity amongst different groups. And if you focus racial consciousness in a positive way, it's going to be put before religion. And I think these denominations are going to put their religious faiths aside in order to achieve this sort of racial unity. I think that's the primary thing. Now, if that doesn't happen, then well, I don't know what to tell you. This whole ethnostate discussion is kind of a moot point, but for the most part, I'm not worried about the Protestant Christian faiths. The Catholics, not really. I'm sure many of them are probably going to go off to live with the more Catholic majority Mexicans and things like that. But I'm not too concerned with this religious infighting. And as far as theocracy is concerned, I don't think the government's going to be a theocracy. But the reason why I excluded Mormons and gave them their own containment state is because they are ungovernable. The other Protestant faiths are not. They're more than happy to be governed by either someone of their own faith or someone of a slightly different Protestant faith, or even agnostics, deists, and atheists in some cases. Lots of them are fairly progressive in that regard, so I'm not super worried about it. Kayla, what do you think?
Well, I mean, to be honest, right before I really started having these discussions and everything in this corner of the internet, right? Because I'd always hear about the infighting, I guess you'd say between the religious factions of the right, and I didn't really think much of it. But I am actually extremely surprised at how much they really do fight. Like they argue all the time, always. It's pagans versus Christians. It's pagans versus Catholics. I mean, and so I think that, at some point to some extent, right, it's going to have to be let live, I guess. But also we have a bigger enemy. But at the same time, right, when we no longer have the enemy, we are going to start to really fight with each other. And so I guess there should be at least some community type of division. But maybe something within that community to unify the different religious factions on different levels, right? Like you said, it would have to be some sort of ethnic unification that not only just happens in that society initially, but you have to really keep it up.
Right.
There will be a split.
And Mormonism, I basically see them as a hyper religious cult, which is why they're ungovernable. They essentially have their own religious theocracy / ethnostate out there in Utah. That's essentially how it is. And they're so subversive. Basically, who said it? LL is right. I think you say your name is right. They're basically the new Jews. They don't want to be ruled by anyone else. They have their own little practices. It's a bastardization of Christianity. Of all the Christian faiths, I don't have a problem with. Mormonism is not one of them. I have a big issue with the way that these people act. I mean, it's essentially just Scientology, but slightly more legitimate. But they're insane. If you there's a comment on the video by Purple Pill Guy, an ex-Mormon. I liked it, so it should be at the top of the feed. Go and read that comment if you haven't. That's the main reason why Mormons should get their own containment state.
Well, and I mean, also think about how fanatical any ideology, right? Let's just say, fuck it, you're right, any religion has to be able to withstand the cultural assaults that are happening today, right? I mean, they've been able to really hold up their little corner, their little territory. And you'd have to absolutely be extremely fanatical to withstand the level of pause and the level of degeneracy, and just outside influences. So,
right, and if you allow them into the ethnostate, they're going to break off and cause problems as it is, regardless of whether they're white or not. So the biggest question was, okay, well, Mormons are the most white community in America. Yes, but if you include them in the state, they're going to cause more problems than it's worth. It's unfortunate, but this is just how that cult operates. Mormons can keep Utah. It's completely radioactive anyway. Thank you, Liberty Sun. That's pretty much true. What about Islamic whites? I'd prefer if they didn't come either, but many of them can be reformed. There will be, if I had my say in how the government operates, there'd be anti-Islamic laws. So,
Yeah, absolutely. You can't. It'd be like saying that. Well, would we want like Luke Fords in the ethnostate, right? Would we want, technically, they're Anglos, but they are adherents to the Jewish faith. You'd feel like their loyalties and their alliances would be somewhere else, and they just simply would
Sure.
cause distrust. And then, obviously, in the case of Islam, they could cause actual violence within a community. So,
Islam is very anti-Western, so I don't want it in the country. JM says, could a country like Australia or New Zealand establish themselves as a secondary ethnostate? Yeah, sure they could. They have the demographics to do it as well. You're just gonna have to, break off the country in a similar manner. But we'll go into the whole refugee question here in a minute. If history proves anything, blacks will follow us to the end of the earth to take advantage of our infrastructure and institutions. Yeah, this is one of the primary reasons why this split up is so important, and it's why it's so important to put up a big old fucking border wall too. Spoiler alert says you should take a look into the ideology called Christian identity. It's explicitly pro-white and counter-Semitic. There are many CI practitioners on our side. Oh yeah, I'll have a look at it.
well, and plus, I don't think the ethnostate would have too much of a problem with blacks if there was America 2.0 still, because blacks, right? The person in the chat was right. They do want to live around whites. They want to have access to whites, especially, right? They want to have access to white women. And yeah, as long as there are people in America too that make the bad decision to stay in America too, then yeah, I don't think blacks will really come knocking at the door until that part of society completely collapses.
Yeah, and there's a little bit more to unpack there, but we'll kind of get there when I go into sort of the optimal question. But yeah, American life. I realize not all Mormons are the same, but you have to generalize here because stooping to the level of the individual creates bureaucracy, which is what we're trying to avoid. Yeah, access to whites is not a human right.
Yeah.
What's the next question here? Okay, so a lot of people, and I understandably get this. Why should we give up the South? Well, the problem with the South is that your ancestors fucked up. That's just the truth of it. They fucked up. They kept their slaves. They didn't sell them off. They didn't ship them back to Africa. And now you have to deal with those consequences. I know it's unfortunate. It's been your homeland for a very long time now. Trust me, I get it. But the alternative is not good. The alternative is your descendants, get strung up and lynched by a black mob because they're white. That's the issue that we face. So, yeah, I don't want to give up certain states or territories either, but you're going to have to in order to keep the race going, essentially. It's not worth trying to keep a hold of the South because it's already in some areas, 87% black in certain counties. It's not recoverable without extreme violence, which is what we're trying to avoid here. Are there any valuable resources in the South that you can't get anywhere else? They have pretty large resources of coal, but other than that, not really. There's nothing really in the South that you explicitly need to survive that you can't get in the North. It used to be like that, where the South had some pretty important agricultural industries, but that's just not the case anymore. Yeah, the founding fathers in the South fucked up. That's true. They fucked up, and now we have to live with it. Will the ethnostate allow homosexuals in private? Voting patterns say yes, but I'm curious to get your thoughts. Yeah. As far as the homosexual question is concerned, I'm not going to go full countercurrents and have like anti-gay death squads kicking down doors looking for butt sex. I'm not going to do that. But there will be laws against, the promotion of unnatural sexual acts. Essentially, no pride parades. Keep your fucking pants on. Don't ask, don't tell, because that policy seems to work, and it's the most peaceful solution as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree.
The Confederates are why we're in this mess. Well, you're not wrong, but don't get me wrong. There are plenty of issues with the war of northern aggression, but you just kind of have to deal with the cards that you're dealt, Southerners. Gays shouldn't have the right to marry, but the right to live. Yeah, this is pretty much it. Just the only thing I'm concerned about is gay propaganda, state enforced homosexuality, the predatory nature of it, because there is an insane rate of child predators in the homosexual community, so that's going to be stamped out. But the people who say, "Oh, we're going to eradicate the gays and we're going to put them on a boat and ship them into the sun or whatever," it's like, no, that's first of all, it's not going to work. Second of all, you're eliminating people who could be very productive members of society because of their sexuality. So long as they keep it in their bedroom and they don't talk about it, that's all I really care about.
Right. You want to, I mean, if anything, it's just, I don't want to know that it exists. Right. And if I don't know that it exists, then I don't really have to worry too much about my kids knowing it exists.
Sure.
If I'm not even going to do if they turn gay. Nope. I'm not playing that game.
Voluntary shock treatments. Yeah.
They're going to have to go concentrate on some stuff. All right.
Yeah. Gays go back to the closet.
Yeah.
Should gays and undesirables be sterilized? Feels kind of fucked up, but some reproduction is going to be trying to happen. No, because that requires force to do, and I'm not in favor of sterilizing people because that's a fundamental physiological change that you can't recover from. Like, I'm perfectly fine with gay people. Don't get me wrong here. I don't really mind. The problem I have with them is that their sexuality dominates their entire lives. They make an identity out of it,
Yes.
and they pass it on to the children, and it's a pervasive error in nature. And yeah, Riley's right. Being overly cruel to gays just advances progressivism, in my opinion. And it's not like they reproduce anyway. Sean's right.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to start making it seem like you are targeting specific people or you are victimizing certain people because yeah, absolutely, like Riley is saying, we don't need people to feel over sympathetic to a specific group within a society.
That's right. And so George Orwell says, free speech in the ethnostate? Yeah, it depends on what you mean by free speech. I think that certain ideologies should be physically removed. But other than that, I mean, yeah, free speech for the most part is just fine.
Well, and plus, isn't it better to have free speech so subversives are actually, to some extent, speaking aloud about what they are, what they're thinking, what they're doing? If the further you try to drive something underground, right, it just makes it harder to manage. And you will still have to root it out, right? Because it's going to be a problem. But yeah, don't make it a bigger problem than yourself. And I always say this, like Rockwell said, right? He would just as well gas a communist, but he will give that communist a right to speak before he gasses him. So,
well, the problem with Rockwell is that he just wasn't up and up on the times because it wasn't out in the open how subversive communism is. In fact, ideologically speaking, communism is inherently anti-white and is the encouragement of the violent expropriation of wealth from whites to non-whites. That's why I think it's fundamentally anyone who engages in communism or communistic thought does not belong in the state because they are against the very system in and of itself.
I'm just going to have to say Rockwell did nothing wrong ever. All right.
This is where Hans Hermann Hoppe comes out. They're not allowed. They're undesirables. They're subversives. See you later, American Life. Thanks for coming out. Are we going to let gays adopt kids? No. There was another question.
That was easy.
No, we're not going to. Oh, what happens to pedos in the ethnostate, rope or wood chipper? It depends on what's cheaper.
Exactly.
The libertarian solution. What's cheaper? Is teachers' curriculum protected under free speech? To an extent, yes. Like I said, anything that can be considered undesirable or subversive should be violently banned. Things like communism. And the only thing that's really on that list is communism. Like, everything else is fine. Are liberals, in fact, brainwashed by Marxism and are not liberals at all? Yeah, they're not liberals. Let's see. Great Yash says subversives will never be out in the open. Yeah, that's true. But there needs to be measures taken to prevent them from entering into institutions. McCarthy did nothing wrong.
Oh, what will we do with Halsey in the Ethnostate? One, the first thing we do is question, how the fuck did Halsey get in the Ethnostate? Where is there a hole in the wall?
That's gonna be a big fucking hole.
Yeah. Is there like a waterfall? He like shoved himself into a barrel and just sent himself over the edge.
I'm in favor of trebuchet nationalism. If we find an illegal, we just put them on a trebuchet and launch them on a target to the other side of the wall.
That'd be fun. Make a game of it, to be honest.
No, we're not going to put Jews in zoos. Jesus Christ.
It's fun to say that. What will we do with the lawyers and judges? What will we do with lawyers and judges in the Ethnostate? What do you mean?
I think he's talking about Jews, but
okay. Yeah, I mean that's what I was like, but they won't be in there, you know. But I don't know. To some extent, you can only try to control it so much.
Right. Okay, so the next thing that I'd like to mention is if you haven't seen Joel Skousen's Strategic Relocation, it's a $35 kit that breaks down. I mean, you want to talk about autistic detail. This thing is amazing. I would encourage, I haven't bought one yet. I would encourage if you have the money to go and buy one. That's Joel, Joel, Skousen, Skousen, Skousen. Go check that out. Okay, so the next big topic that I got a lot of questions about is what do we do with Pacific ports, Oregon and Washington? Now, this is an interesting one because honestly, in my opinion, the access to the Pacific is not a necessity. Because, I mean, if we're not going to be trading with China or East Asia that much anyway, and if we need to, we can either fly there, which would be possible, send ships down through the Horn, or we can negotiate with Panama to get access to the Panama Canal for a trading route. Those are all possibilities, but ultimately, I don't think it's a necessity. Now, we might have some issues gathering materials from Australia, especially rare earth minerals, but it's not. I don't think access to the Pacific is a necessity per se. Let's see. Rufio Boof says, how do we revive pagan spirituality? Good question. It starts with racial consciousness. Solid Water asks, should we take over Hollywood or should we let it crush? No, I don't want Hollywood. Fuck that place. It's disgusting. we don't want Hollywood. What? No, that Los Angeles can sink back into the sea as far as I'm concerned.
But think of all the cool props and costumes we can get out of having to do business with those. Not even do business, even being around them. You could all look like cowboys for a day. That'd be kind of cool. I'm just saying.
But onto the question of Oregon and Washington. The primary reason why I left them out, one is that we have to like make this like hook shape kind of around, you know, the Mormon ethnostate, which is kind of a border gore for the most part. I don't think that we're going to be allowed to do that. Plus, the political climate in there is only further shifting to the left, and they're the most vocal. So what I would encourage, in fact, is all the rural conservative white people to leave the state, come over to the ethnostate, and then they can just have Oregon and Washington and all that. Now, the question of the military bases and the nukes in the area, all that, we'll get there. But for the most part, I think it's a political liability to have these people in the ethnostate. I'd rather them just be a part of the US 2.0. Let's see here. Look at some questions. Sell Hollywood to India.
If the price is right, they might do it.
Let's see. Halsey gets like 20 live viewers per stream, yet he's strongly embedded in the pro-white movement. Yeah, I don't know why people keep fucking talking to him. He's not that interesting. I mean, maybe if you want to like put him up on the cross and let people destroy him, I guess. But
I mean, I spoke to Halsey because I was really trying to convince him to debate a Holocaust revisionist. He's not willing to do it.
Of course not, because he'd lose.
Exactly. But nonetheless, I thought people would really want to see it. So he does only participate in certain things. That's why you won't see him debate Stryker. You won't see him debate the Holocaust. There are only specific topics in which he will continue to go over, right, over and over again. And kind of the same debate replayed a bunch of times. I don't know.
So people also talked about the Northwest Front and Cascadia. That's a good alternative, and I'm not going to stop them from doing that. Y'all keep doing what you're doing over there. I think it's a good movement. But this, again, this entire video and this map that I made is in the optimal scenario for forming an ethnostate. And and it's fairly realistic. So of course we have to react to reality as it comes to us. In the meantime, yeah, just let the Northwest Front and Cascadia kind of do their thing. If they want to save that area, go for it. But I would encourage them, if the time comes, to give it up and come and move into the ethnostate. And then don't forget, Reconquista is not off the table. Ultimately, these non right wing societies will fail or be conquered by someone else.
Well, that's why, I mean, I don't know. I understand the landlocked argument, but even if you're only exposed to the ocean on one side, you can just start to build up. I mean, maybe it's going to have to be a longer game. You're not going to get every territory that you want at first. And
Right.
kind of have to go back to our, our time preference that we're, that kind of makes whites white.
Garm93 says, tuned in late. What are your thoughts on the Northwest Front and H. Covington? Yeah, we just talked about it. Yeah. Good timing. Do you think it would be beneficial if there was more contact between White Nationalists 1.0 and Millennial Nationalists? No, not really, because there's nothing that they can teach us that we don't already know or have improved upon. I generally don't associate with these people because I think they're a stain on the movement as a whole. And many of them are transferring over to the new way of doing things, which is not, to burn crosses and attack minorities. Let's see. What is the policy for non-whites and half-breeds when the ethnostate is formed? Do they all have to leave? Can they sell their property? Can a certain percent stay? Here's the interesting thing. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and get to that question. What do we do with non-whites in the ethnostate? Well, the primary thing that makes an ethnostate are the laws backing it up. The government has to be run by that ethnicity, and secondly, there has to be laws in place that protect the sanctity of that ethnic group ruling in that country. For example, some people don't like to consider Mexico an ethnostate, but there are laws on the books saying that, a certain percent of the population has to be Mexican, or they're going to start sending people out of the country. That in and of itself makes it an ethnostate of some kind.
Well,
so when people say, oh, we're going to form an ethnostate and gas all of this and kick out all of those, well, it's not necessary. Go ahead, Kayla. You were going to say something?
Oh, I was just... Sorry about that. Worst time to actually take a hit. But anyways, I was going to say, doesn't Mexico have a law when it comes to being able to own property that if you're not a national, you can't own it, you can't buy it?
Exactly. Common sense regulation as far as that's concerned.
So there's their immigration policy to some extent, even, right? It's not seen necessarily as immigration, but it is. Controls who can really live there permanently.
Yep.
Own property. You get.
So, as soon as we take this territory over, no one has to move. I think they're going to move on their own volition. That's the easiest way to do it. Instead of having to spend millions of dollars, moving these people or kicking them out or doing anything undesirable like that, they're going to move themselves. They may not be able to do business. They may not be able to own property, because it's all about freedom of association. And if people in the ethnostate don't want to associate with these non-whites, well, they're going to have a bad time. And there's multiple things you can do in bargaining with the other ethnostates to move people around the country. For example, if we have a lot of black folks in Chicago, right, and we want to move them around, well, we'll go to the black ethnostate leaders and say, hey, we have this large population of black people. Would you want to take them in? We'll trade you, something. We'll give you $5,000, and you take that $5,000 and you offer it to these people as a sign of good faith. Say, hey, every black person that doesn't live in the black ethnostate, we'll give you $5,000 and an apartment or a car or something if you come and move down here. And they'll eat that shit up and they'll move. So that's one of the very easy and very reasonable methods in which people move out. Now, half-breeds and mixed people, that's a whole different story. I'm sure that most people who are mixed, half white, half black, identify with the black side because that's the most prominent phenotype when it comes to mixing people together, with black and white in particular.
Well, and also with mixed races, the black and white real fast. Obviously, light-skinned blacks are they're very desirable within the black community. Now, there is like some points of contention, but in terms of, I guess their reproductive desirability, right? They are, they're much higher up there.
Right. Yeah. So, and there's going to be infighting in the black ethnostate as well. I'm not particularly concerned with that, but you basically, There's many ways that people are going to leave on their own volition, and that's fine. That's exactly what we want. It's cheaper, it's more effective, it's better in the eyes of the international scene. It's an all-around better time, and some people are going to stay. Sure, an ethnostate does not have to be 100% one ethnicity. It doesn't have to. It should be 80+%, 85+%. But the most important thing is that there are laws in place to maintain a majority of one ethnicity over another. That's the most important thing. And the problem is, in the Western world, no white country has those laws. None of them. That's why there's no white ethnostate. Now, you can turn to something like Israel, where they also have not rites of passage, but basically, if you're a Jew and you're outside Israel, they'll give you a free trip to come over here, and they'll give you like a shovel and some land to work. We'll do something like that as well.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you don't have to worry about having about what an 85% majority, especially if your government or your state has pro-natalist policies, right? If there are programs to help the reproduction rate of whites increase.
Right, and there's various ways you can do that. One of them is you can do something like the Third Reich did, which is essentially the government gives out loans to families who are expecting, and every time you have a kid, they knock off 25% of the debt. So it encourages people to take on these loans, have children, and eventually the debt just goes away, and you don't have to repay it. And it's also an interest-free loan. So there's lots of things you can do like that. I'm going to be talking to some folks later about that, so I think that video will go up tomorrow. But anyway, the next question is, what about the nukes? What do we do with all the nukes that are all across the country? Well, this relies heavily on the question of how do we get to the ethnostate first? Because if you don't know what that is, you can't answer the question of what do we do with the nukes. So I'll lay out my plan here in just a sec. Okay, so the best scenario that I can see that this ethnostate thing happening is that at some point, whether it's a co-opted Republican Party or it's a third party that gains a lot of popularity, coming into power in the United States, taking the position of the president, and then establishing these new borders and then dissolving the U.S. federal government. That's essentially, I think, the best possible scenario. And the reason why is because before dissolving the country, the president can move like military hardware around. He can make sure that some nuclear materials are deconstructed. So some of these weapons are what's the word? God, I don't remember the word. Basically disposed of or broken apart or something like that. He can move as much military equipment as he wants to around the country. This is essentially how we would solve the nuke problem, because in the event of a civil war, these nukes are going to fall into the hands of very bad people, and we don't want that to happen. This is the reason why the peaceful solution is the best one, because we have these nuclear weapons and this military hardware stockpile. So in the event of a peaceful scenario, I didn't say how likely this was or how this will be achieved necessarily, but to have a president who is sympathetic to this ethnostate cause and who will eventually enact it can prevent nuclear material from falling into the hands of undesirables. Let's look at the chat here. Any thoughts, Kayla?
I mean, honestly, not too many on that. I mean, I know that that's obviously something that will need to be really thought about, but yeah, I haven't. That hasn't taken up a lot of my brain power, whatever brain power I have, right? Because like you, I didn't see it as a priority right now.
Right. Yeah. We'll deal with the nukes when we get there.
Sorry.
Decommission. Jesus Christ. Thank you guys. And it's the right of return. That's what it is. Thank you. I know we got some secret Jews out there who know a lot about this. So thanks for keeping a goy up on his toes. Caesar did nothing wrong, so the ethnostate keeps nukes and no one else does. Not necessarily. I'd be in favor of brokering a nuclear deal with other states and allowing them to keep some materials. In fact, I'd be in favor of dismantling all but a few of the nuclear programs and all of the nuclear material for the time being, and then allowing states to create their own if they see that it's necessary. But for the most part, I don't want this stuff to fall into the hands of our adversaries, so to speak.
Yeah, you don't need to proliferate any type of arms race any more than we've already got going right now.
And JM is correct. Is it a good idea to have no nukes? Yeah, that's essentially not what I'm saying. I don't want to decommission all of them. Some of them obviously must be used. And in fact, on the map that I proposed, we still have at least a dozen nuclear missile sites that are still active in the northern Midwest. So there is still plenty of material to go around for us. We still have plenty of defense. And yeah, you guys are correct. I am 24. Mulek was right.
Gosh, I knew you were young, but yeah, you're very, very smart for 24. I'm loving this. Pardon me. I don't know. I feel old. I'm 28, right? I feel old, but
that's not too old.
it's not. It's getting there. But
you need to be married. God damn it!
What's that?
You need to be having a family by. I don't know about your personal life. But.
I've been together with my guy for almost a decade at this point. But yeah, we're going to be married by the end of the year, and then at the beginning of next year, that's when we're going to be working on children.
Took him fucking long enough, Jesus.
Well, we are. I mean, when you say like K selected, right? I mean, just even in terms of not even just reproduction, right? But okay, when are we going to get married? I mean, planning and everything. Not planning a wedding. Nothing is actually planned for the most part. But in terms of just having resources and having security set up, we both focus very heavily on that. Not very like carefree.
Well, that's good, but God damn it, 10 years, that's too long.
Yeah. Well, we started out as like friends for like the first half. That's a good thing, when you're friends with someone. It's
I thought you were like dating for 10 years. It's like, come on, man, slap a ring on it.
It's been like, God, if I'm 28, then it'd be about 6 years or so.
There we go. Okay. So that's what I think about nukes. Basically, in an optimal scenario, they would be. Most of them would be dismantled. We would keep a few. US 2.0 would keep a few. Blacks may have some if they want them. Let's see. Why are you guys talking about Aaron? No one cares about Aaron.
I bet I know who did it. I'm looking at you, Tom, right? You're noticed again, but for the wrong reason. He's always stirring stuff up in the chat. He's saying how he wants Asian girlfriends. He's okay with Orthodox Judaism. Now, Aaron, come on. Tom, you got to get it together, man. I don't know what's happening with you.
Jesus. Well, I'll tell you this about Erin. She is a literal cam whore. If you haven't seen the video, it's out there. It is disturbing.
No, that wasn't her.
Huh?
That wasn't her.
Oh, no, this is her.
Oh, there's a different one.
Yeah, this is her.
Oh.
Yeah. This is her because it's done on her phone in her house. I recognize the house in the background.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So if you're curious of what her ass looks like, I guess you can go look it up, but it's fucking gross because she looks cracked out.
She does. I know she says that, she used Adderall and that was it. And it's like,
I believe that.
There's something wrong. I'm just even psychologically speaking, something is very off. I won't get into it, but
yeah, we're talking about Aaron, the dumb thought that was on
that is a thought. That is absolutely
Worski's stream. Yeah, I know. Blacks and nukes, bloody ridiculous. The problem is that we have to be. We're in a position of negotiation here. Now, I would be in favor of taking all the nukes away from everybody and keeping it for ourselves, but that's just not a viable option. So you have to realize that those things are bargaining chips, and if we can secure our ethnostate with allowing them to get a few, it's fine. Plus, the leaders that I would put in a position of power are not going to be some BLM retards. They'd be relatively smart.
Yeah, they're going to be like hoteps.
Pravada's asking where the pick is. I'm not gonna link it here.
I saw that, Pravada. It's not for research, right? Well, you're like, well, I just wanted to see maybe we could get her on as a guest, and I need to know what we're working with here. I was actually going to bring her on, and I was really trying to, and the chat was trying, but because I wanted to ask her, what do you think womanhood, right? What's your definition of womanhood? What do you think a woman is? I really wanted to know, and people are like, don't bother, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm over it now, but yeah.
All right. Let's see. Birdbrain says low IQ in charge of nukes don't be so bloody dense. That's the thing. I just said that it's going to be the most intelligent of their ethnic group taking control of the state, right? And they're going to be the ones in charge of it. Now, Whether or not these monkeys can actually operate them without blowing themselves up is a whole nother question. But again, I said this is a bargaining tool. It's something that you have to think about. And stop wasting time on cam whores. I agree.
Yeah.
But the chat brought it up. God damn it, chat, don't bring it up.
It's always Tom Anderson's fault. Just saying.
Yeah. So, okay, what's the next question here? What about, okay, we talked about the Northwest Front and Cascadia. The next one was leaving out Texas and Florida. So, I don't want to leave out Texas, but you have to realize that the demographics in Texas are so fucked, they're unrecoverable without ethnic cleansing. So, probably just going to leave Texas to the darkies and the Mexicans, so they can just have it. For example, on my map, I took a little bit of the panhandle, swooped down, grabbed up Dallas because it's still majority white for the most part. The blacks can have Houston, and then Austin and San Antonio can belong to the US 2.0, which eventually will become Mexico anyway. But these demographics are unrecoverable in Texas for the most part, unless you really pump up those numbers and secure the border and actually keep people out of the state. There's no way to recover. The same can be said for Florida. Strategically, there's no way for a white ethnostate to hold on to Florida and have it surrounded on all sides by the black ethnostate and the Caribbean beneath it. There's just not possible. So, and plus, I mean, the biggest thing about Florida is its tourism. Cape Canaveral is super important if you want to have a space program that can launch equatorial rockets. That's a huge loss, I know, but it's just something we're going to have to deal with. Again, this is a bargaining chip. We will give you Florida, we'll give you Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, things like that. It's fine, you can have it, but we get the rest of this over here. It's all about power. Let's see. Extract all the oil and gas before leaving the state. Well, hopefully we won't be relying that much on oil and gas by then.
Let's see. Yeah, no, I actually, and I know that right there is someone in the chat that's kind of saying this. I was actually a little surprised to see the East Coast in the new ethnostate territory, because in my mind, I thought that would have been one of the harder territories to take back. I know that they are, for the most part, right, majority white outside of the metropolitan areas. But just even ideologically speaking, it's almost like you are kind of dealing with the West Coast to some extent.
Bottom of the barrel says, should we really remain under a post-federal government state? Would we still have the same banking system? No. If again, in an optimal scenario, if I'm king of New Europe, no, it's going to be a fascistic state of some kind, whether it's National Socialism or just straight up fascism or something like that. That's to be determined. But if the ethnostate forms, it's not going to be the same republicanist faction, I don't think, because the tides are really turning. So the banking system and all of that, it's going to be radically different than the way you know it today. Let's see. Will subversive art be allowed in the ethnostate? No, there will be degeneracy laws of some kind. Not too extreme, like I said, if you want to rewind the stream and that we talked about homosexuality and all that, but not to the like 1984 style stuff, no. Because we're not communist. Let's see. You stream too early. Got to remember the 9 to 5ers. Well, the problem is that everybody else, all the other popular live streams, are also in that time slot. So if I stream a little bit earlier, then I get more viewers and more people have time to tune into my stream. And lots of Europeans appreciate this stream slot because it's right when they get off work, essentially, or before they go to bed. And the audience is split 50-50 anyway. So
yeah, it's about 9 o'clock or so for the most part in Europe. So yeah, it's hard for nationalist types of streams to find a time slot that actually works for the majority of their viewers.
Right. And Barracks here says, do you have any thoughts on what nationalists here in Europe can do? Cede areas to non-whites or drive towards the Reconquista? Europeans have a right to claim all of the territory in there. You don't secede a single fucking thing. You drive everybody out.
Will Baked Alaska be in the ethnostate? No.
Yeah.
Personally, that's my opinion. I've got a small list, but he's on it.
Will Baked Alaska be allowed in the ethnostate? No. He's gonna be in LA, so. How will you form an ethnostate without world war? Are you planning for that? Again, in this particular scenario, this one of many scenarios, I mean, there's infinite possibilities. The rest of the world turns nationalist, or at least some form of, they'll be sympathetic to the cause, essentially. And by the time that this happens, we're not going to be relying on China, so their economy will collapse. And I mean, what are they going to fucking do? Are the South American monkeys going to invade? No. Mexico? Maybe, but we can just repel them. It's not going to be that fucking hard. I don't think there's going to be a global conflict. But what will drag us into a global conflict is civil war, and that's what we're trying to avoid here.
Exactly. Right. Anytime that nowadays, when you see the powers on the world, on the world stage actually getting involved in a nation period, right? It's always because of a civil war. It's not because that nation is actually going and fighting other countries outside of its borders. For the most part, they're fighting within their own borders, and people always intervene. So yeah.
Right. And Elixir says, what should we do with the upper echelons of minorities that want to interbreed with us? No interbreeding. In fact, these upper echelons of minorities are going to be the people who are ruling the other ethnostates.
Exactly.
So, for example, the highest IQ black should put in a eugenics program in the black ethnostate to prevent these low IQ people from breeding. That would be my suggestion. So when we go to the thinking table here, and I sit down and I say, all right, Daquan, you know what you got to do, right? You got to keep the low IQ our selected types or whatever from breeding.
And then when he says what, you say, oh, sorry, you have to keep those dumb nibbas in check. And he'll be like, oh, okay.
How would the new state be funded? What about the debt owed to the Federal Reserve? I say fuck them. I say fuck them too. We're going to seize all their assets, essentially. The debt's just going to disappear because we're going to form a new currency. And as far as I am read on the subject today, it's going to be central banking only. No private banks, but there is some discussion to be had there. Black no state, Alaska. I'm not a Nazi. Fuck Nazis. Baked Alaska. Yeah, that's why I've officially disowned him for the last time. Yeah. See, there's so many chat messages I can only keep up. Will bearded ladies be allowed in if they're pregnant? If they're full of hormones, no, I don't. I'm not in favor of trannies getting into the ethnostate.
They clearly would have a problem with hormones if they're growing a beard. But yeah, I get what you're saying. What the right. Bearded lady? What are you guys thinking, chat? What is going on in your?
Which is more dangerous, South American monkeys or surface-to-air missiles? Yeah, essentially.
Mm.
Let's see here. Nibba, please. Yeah, only a tyrant wants to rule over multi-ethnic nations. National Credit Union, that's a good solution as well. What will be on the coins in the new currency? It'll be a picture of my face.
On the other side, can we have a picture of a cat?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Haha. Cool.
Well, see, the thing is, James, I agree. I don't want to give them nukes either, but you have to deal with practical reality. And when you come to the bargaining table, this is a matter of geopolitics. You have to remain strong, but you're going to have to concede some things to get exactly what you want. And if one of those things is a nuclear program, we're going to have to give it to them, unfortunately, because we don't have the strength in numbers right now to just fully manifest destiny the whole country. And if we're forming a new state, we're not going to have an immediate military. Our economy is probably going to take a few months to sort out, if not years. There's no possible way that we can enforce this rule of no nukes. If they want it, we may have to concede it. It's a possibility. After the ethnostate is formed, would you simply leave the other new states to do their own thing or plan to retake America at some point? I'm not in favor of the white man's burden. They can leave it to themselves. Now, in the future, when the black ethnostate collapses because they're incapable of growing food, I'd be in favor of sending in some troops with biohazard suits on, sort of cleaning the area out and then retaking it. Sure, it's a possibility. But for the most part, I'm not in favor of imperialism like that. I don't want to rule over other races. It's not my job. They can.
I'm sorry, go
ahead. They can do it themselves. I'm more in favor of them just leaving it to themselves.
Well, and especially if we're trying to either build up a new territory or, really work hard to maintain this new territory, the last thing we need to do is be, using any resources to take care of any other territories. It costs money, right? It really, really costs money to to keep up other people's land, and there's just there's no benefit from it.
Right.
And like you said, I would absolutely just leave it to the blacks, wait for it to collapse, and then go in there and see what we want to take back.
The only eugenics program that African states needs is to be cut off from Europeans, pretty much.
Yep.
Let's see. Will subversive literature film be allowed for the purposes of studying record keeping? Sure, for the most part, but the promotion of such things is not going to be allowed. For example, I've talked about this previously. There's no way for the state to enforce people watching or not watching pornography. Obviously, it's going to be impossible to police the things that people view. And if you want to look at some tits, it's fine. Look at some tits. But the production of such material, I think, is going to be heavily restricted. And that's the easiest thing to do, is to keep that material from being produced. And I don't think that much of it should be kept for record keeping purposes. I think most of it should be just burned. Would New Europe form a military alliance with old Europe? Yeah, of course. There's going to be a brotherly alliance there. But there's two possible scenarios with Europe in my eyes. One, it becomes a new caliphate and crumbles into the dust. Or two, they go full 1488 on everybody and retake Europe. In either scenario, I think New Europe is going to be better off. So if we want to talk about white refugee programs, if Europe somehow falls to the caliphate, I'm in favor of allowing refugee status for people from Europe, if they're of European descent, coming over and living here. I mean, that's the point of the ethnostate, right? It's a homeland for a certain group of people. So I'd be okay with that, with some vetting and some screening and all of that, of course. King Leroy, the 420th of the Democratic Niggas Republic of Wakanda. Holy shit, that's great.
That was good.
In your optimistic split, was there any resources that the white ethnostate may be lacking? Not really. I have the map up here. Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and southern Utah do have a lot of materials and mineral production, but for the most part, they're not as essential as some people make them out to be, like bauxite and what was the other one? Fuck, I don't remember. But we can get them from other sources. It's fine. It's nothing that is absolutely necessary. Let's see. Not being American, I do not know the details of what is legal when it comes to funding people to West Point. Yeah, sponsorship is allowed. What will we do with Roosh V? He can go to American 2.0. I don't want him.
Yeah, I'm good. There you go. Here's our gift. We'll, slap a bow on his beard and just leave him at their door. Just ring the doorbell and run.
Gabbia says, if you don't want to rule over non-whites, why allow 10 to 15% of the population to be non-white? Well, the thing is, they're going to remove themselves. This is the pragmatist libertarian approach. Why spend money removing them if they're just going to remove themselves anyway?
Right. I mean, who would want to live in a state where the state is making, if you're not white, or to some extent, whatever it is, right? And the state is making all of these pro-white policies. Yeah, you're going to say, well, clearly I can go live in America too, and maybe I can find a nice little suburb there, and there will be state policies that benefit me.
Right.
You just don't, sometimes it takes a little longer, but it's best, and yeah, help our own people. They'll move.
Rockhawk McGawk Deezy says, I'm with some blue pill people right now. Quickly red pill them about God's chosen people. Shit, what do I say? Look up
Bolshevism, communism,
yeah.
Marxism, feminism.
Read 200 Years Together by Solzhenitsyn. That's about that.
Pornography.
Yeah.
Hollywood, race mixing, subversion, usury. I mean, some people would say 9/11, but I wouldn't throw that one in there. Don't throw that one in there. There you go. There's a few red pills. Just and when it comes to red pilling people, kind of see what they're afraid of, right? What their fears are, and I mean, you kind of in a way can exploit those fears, but you do it in a nice way, and you try to provide them with answers for these things that maybe scare them, for these changes that are happening within society, and to some extent, you try to offer them a solution.
Right.
So, there you go.
Should the ethnostate have immigration quotas for certain European ethnicities similar to previous American immigration laws? Immigration quotas? No, I think that we shouldn't bring in anybody because it disrupts the labor market. And in my eyes, if we're going to have an economy based on labor of some sorts, then you can't have a constant influx of immigrants because you're going to upset the labor market, which in turn destroys the economy. Let's see. There's another question. Greg Johnson said he liked porn, but he would like it to banned. I think it was V, your academic agent, that couldn't comprehend that logic. The problem is, and this is the problem with people like Greg Johnson in the first place, is that you can't enforce that without a massive bureaucratic overarching state, which is just communism. We're not like that. It's sort of beneath us to patrol what people look at or how they think or things like that. Naturally, if we introduce this idea of traditionalism, people are going to naturally resort back to the way they were. You don't need, like I said, with the whole gay question, you don't need anti-gay death squads kicking down doors looking for butt sex. It's not necessary. That's beneath us as far as I'm concerned. Now, should you outlaw the production of pornography? Yeah, absolutely, because it's undesirable, it's subversive, and damaging to the health of the nation. But to suggest that we should stop people from viewing it, it's impossible. Especially unless you're going to restrict the internet, which is a stupid thing to do. It's definitely not possible. You're just creating black markets. And this is where libertarians are correct, is that in some aspects, when the state comes in and takes control or centralizes some things, the problem only gets worse. Let's see here. Yeah, so no immigrations.
The Streisand
Yeah.
effect is real. So, if people, the thing is, you'd have to convince the next generation, like not even convince, you'd have to make it where they just do not know about things like pornography or whatever you want to ban, right? You almost have to make it invisible, because if they even have an idea that it is out there, but that the state, their parents are working against them to see it, like how hard do you think they will try to see it?
Right.
And you could really make it much more desirable with this kind of like a rebellious aspect or allure that it would possibly gain.
Todd Whalen says, "Well, yeah, I didn't mean putting people in jail for using porn or anything like that, but that's essentially what censorship entails. Oh, you're going to go after pornographic domains. Well, where does that end? If someone posts a picture of porn on Discord, are you going to come after them? Are you going to send police to their house? How do you censor these things? Are you going to shut down these companies because someone accidentally posted a picture of some titties online? Like, are you going to come after people? Much like with child pornography, if you find porn on their computer, are you gonna seize it and take their property? It's such a ridiculous concept that you think that you can enforce this. This is not how humans operate. And if we're going to apply natural law to our governance, we simply don't have the resources, nor do I think it's morally justifiable to sort of do this. And the problem is, you don't need censorship. What you need is culture coming from families. You need a traditional family value system. We talked about this earlier, where essentially the family unit spreads culture downstream from there, and then it goes on generation after generation. But we don't have strong family values anymore. It's all been degraded. That's why, if you didn't need censorship when people had strong moral values.
And also, I mean, I know that, right? It's a saying everyone's heard, which idle hands are the devil's playthings. And that's really true, right? If we have these young men that are not out, whether it's getting dopamine rushes from physical activities, right? If they're not actually integrated really well within a cohesive society and, meeting young women, then yeah, I mean, if you kind of create a society where these young men are loners, right? They will actually go kind of down that loner path where they seek out, whether it's pleasure or even out of boredom, whatever it is, right? When they seek things out on the internet.
Right.
Yeah,
And
you have to create healthy distractions for people. If they're too busy doing real world things or even fun things, they're going to be too busy to watch porn.
Right. And no, Gawkin, censoring isn't necessary. It's not necessary if you take back control of the culture in the family unit. The problem is, you may think that it's necessary, but it's not possible. It's impossible to censor these things. It's going to slip through, and you're going to create a black market for this. It's like the forbidden fruit.
Yep.
That's just how humans operate. It's not possible to do that without creating a state that no one wants to live in, because I mean, it's a long conversation, but essentially censoring that type of behavior just isn't feasible. I'd much rather spend our resources combating actual problems. It's like, I don't care if you watch porn. I think it's degenerate. I think you should be shamed. And I think the rest of culture should shame you for watching it. And then the problem takes care of itself. And of course, ban the production of it, obviously. But there's so much of it out there, you can't censor all of it. It's not possible. There's a question here. Should we have increased cultural exchanges with base countries like Hungary in order to incorporate their illiberalism into our own culture? I mean, I'm not opposed to sitting down and talking to them about it, but ultimately, I think we should create and adopt our own ideologies and strategies.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think even if there was this cultural exchange, there might be a lot of Hungarians that would be really upset, saying we don't want America's, values or whatever it is, right? We're Hungarians first, right? They're white, they're Europeans, but America doesn't exactly have the best, I guess, track record when it comes to, the preservation of European cultures in their most purest form. So,
right.
That's my opinion.
Bottom of the barrel says better for it to be consumed by a few on the black market than on the mass. That's the problem. Opening up a black market does actually allow it to be consumed in greater numbers than if you took control of the culture in the first place. There wouldn't be a black market for people to look at it. It's just like the problem with guns. Like if you want to ban guns, which I don't, absolutely not. But if you did, an outright blanket ban is impossible. How are you going to police every single person's activity? And like when it comes to digital files, well, what's keeping someone from buying a 1 terabyte SD card or something like that in the future, loading it up with every single video they can find, and then just like dead dropping it in a mailbox? How are you going to come after that? It requires a state that's so invasive that what's the point of even living like that? Let's see here. Yeah. Vegas says, "Men, just get rid of Jews and porn production will decrease a lot. The ethnostate itself is an answer." Yep, that's pretty much the first step. Yeah, that's where it all comes from. And then as a secondary measure, ban its production, but then leave it at that. You don't need to chase after people who are looking at porn. We have better. Our time is spent better someplace else.
We have other things we have to do. There are other focuses, especially for the state, right? I mean, you could either see it almost in a way to some extent as two things, right? Either you try to stop men from jerking off or not watching porn and so forth, so that they can have a family, or you build up the ability to have that family, and then look at that, they're most likely not watching as much porn and jerking off by themselves. So it's either trying to stop one thing or promote the other. Mimir's right with the whole family aspect.
And the laws will favor men in court, things like that.
Yeah.
As Brendan says. Jamie, are you asking me what I'm currently reading? I can answer if that's what you're asking. Let's see. There's still the internet, so you would have to censor it. Jesus Christ, guys, how many times do I have to say this? It's not possible to censor it. It is so pervasive. It's not possible. You're better off just allowing culture to take care of it. It's not going to work. It's literally not going to work. Oh yeah, sorry, spoiler. I saw your question, but we had so many other things. Will advanced robotics and/or automation be outlawed in the ethnostate? If so, how will our eventual economic disadvantage in that regard be balanced? No, I think automation is fine. The problem with automation is that we've imported a permanent underclass that's going to be essentially stripped out of the market by automation. In the future, if everyone is extremely intelligent and doesn't need to work manual labor jobs, automation is fine. Now, there may be some instances of automation in which the state might have to step in, but we'll deal with that reality when we get to it.
Right. Automation is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a bad thing when you combine it with immigration, right? And we've already got a really crumbling middle class. And so if you are importing, right, third worlders to work these low wage, types of jobs and so forth, and then you've got these robots coming in, it's not simply, it can't be mixed. But I think that, I see really two big options for young men in our movement in terms of like job opportunities. It should be tech and it should be trade. So until a robot can build a house or program itself, right, we're still going to have young men that need to know how to do those things, and they'll be able to fully contribute to society doing those things.
Right. And so to what I'm currently reading. One of them is After Virtue, Studying Moral Theory by Alasdair MacIntyre. And then, where's the other one? Nietzsche's Genealogy of Morality. And then Calvin Elliott's Ursery. And then I'm trying to read, what's this one here? It's in German. Hold on, I have to fucking.
I believe it's pronounced Mein Kampf.
No. Not that one.
You left the door wide open for that one.
It's a book by Otto Amann. I don't remember what it's called. Something about natural law. I'll have to take it up later, but let's look at some questions here. Garm, yeah, Richard Spencer recently brought up his imperialism. I'm not in favor of that. I think he's completely wrong on that regard. It's not our job to police these people. And in fact, I think his views are more dangerous than others. That's some real fucking Fed talk right there. No, I don't want to be an imperialist. They can solve their own fucking problems. Until we have our society taken care of, there's no reason for us to be imperialists. It's fucking stupid. Plus, I mean, you just created an international disaster. Thoughts on that? And yeah, okay, I just talked about that. You have to reskill the population. Yeah, that's true. Are there any advantages to using drugs like LSD, shrooms, or should we be universally against them as a culture? Oh yeah, someone asked about weed in the Ethnostate as well.
Right.
The thought about weed is basically there are some medical applications for THC extraction and CBD oil. That's fine, but recreational use should be discouraged by society. Again, same thing like the porn issue. It's such a pervasive thing that outright banning it by the state is not going to be productive. There's so many young men who could be responsible, proactive adults that just need a little bit more shame that are thrown in jail instead and have their lives essentially ruined. They fall into bad crowds in jail. People won't hire them if they have a record. I think it's ridiculous that we're putting people in jail for things like this. Now, other drugs like cocaine, crack cocaine, heroin, things like this. Yeah, we need to go after those people to the fullest extent of the law, but not the users. The users need to be put in some sort of mental health treatment. The people who push this crap get the noose.
Yeah. And I mean, I think things like CBD are, because you will have sick people within your population, right? Like that's just a given. You'll have people that have really bad back problems, or, we'll just use that example, right? You've got people that have chronic pain. Well, obviously, we'd prefer them to be ingesting CBD oil than than any type of opiates. It's if you're able to lean one way over the other, you should just take the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah, and Bill says make weed a state monopoly and rake in the tax revenue. I'd be okay with that for the most part. I know some people aren't. It's like, oh, ban weed, ban all drugs. It's like, okay, well, it hasn't fucking worked. I know one of the reasons why that hasn't worked is because of culture and the family unit, like we've been talking about. But it's just human nature to seek these things once they're banned. It's the forbidden fruit mentality.
Yep.
And as far as psychedelics are concerned, I think if people want to use them, they should use them with caution. And again, like weed, I think they should be monopolized by the state. But I don't think there should be any restrictions on using them or producing them by the state, except on the hard drugs like I talked about.
Well, do you think, actually, when it comes to, so say that the state sold hallucinogenics, do you think there should be an age limit? And I'm thinking when I say like
of course,
age requirement of, I'd say 25 or 26.
Yes, all mind altering substances should be above the age of 25. The exception, I think, should be alcohol. I think it should be lower just a little bit. I think if parents are going to be responsible, then we could lower the age. But as far as I'm concerned, alcohol and smoking cigarettes and things like that are bigger threats that need to be dealt with, and we'll deal with that through the healthcare system, which I can talk about if you guys want to. Do you have any recommended reading specifically on the subject of race? Yeah, Jared Taylor. He's made some really good books on it.
Why did it? Good. And then obviously the bell curve. That's
yeah. The genealogy of morality is good so far. It's a little bit heavy-handed on the anti-Christian stuff, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, Nietzsche wasn't very very shy about his views.
Yeah, he's very open about it.
Yeah, he had a few opinions.
If they commit crime to support their habits, put them in jail. Oh, absolutely. But the problem is if you have somebody who goes home and just smokes a little bit of weed, as long as he's not a degenerate, non-productive person, I don't want to invade on his life because he is, as I said, a productive person. Now, when you have a bunch of dirty hippies sitting around singing campfire songs and kumbaya, smoking weed, well, we may have to step in for that, but that's a little bit different. Alt Knight says, out of curiosity, do you have any experience with psychedelics? Yes. Well, a couple of years ago.
Maybe one time.
Yeah, it's better to leave these things to individuals and communities and the culture in and of itself. Exactly. Not doing any drugs now. No, I gave all that up years ago. I never did anything hard either. I thought that was degenerate even back then.
Yeah, I don't
Governments,
even.
locals know the real local problems. Governments deal in statistics. Yeah, that's why we need local representative councils that can speak to the federal government. Yeah, I would encourage. Here's the thing. Here's the problem with the state, right? It's all fucking propaganda. It's like, oh, weed's so bad for you. It's like literally shooting up heroin. It's like, why don't we take a more reasoned approach and actually teach the facts through the state? That way, people can actually get educated instead of just dismissing it outright. Drug usage is degenerate. I agree with that, and the state should have mental health programs to get people off of those drugs. But the problem is people are going to do them anyway. And it like I said, if you make it a black market, people are just going to go after it. It's better left up to families and communities to do so. Social ostracizing, shame, all of those things, business owners are free to not hire anyone who touches anything like drugs. Perfectly fine.
Well, and plus, I mean, you don't want to, when it comes to like teaching children about it and so forth, right? You don't want to over exaggerate and pretty much lie about it because you're just going to, delegitimize your argument as a whole to not do drugs.
Yeah, and we're working from a place of objective reality here, so the current state propaganda just isn't real. Yeah, JM says white people are much better weed users than blacks usually.
Yeah.
We'll probably be fine. That is true.
Well, except for spoiler alert right above him in the chat. I injected 5 weeds once. It was crazy. I don't.
That's funny.
You might want to Google. Just never mind. Don't do it again.
Yeah. Like a two snap, like I said, certain drugs like methamphetamines and heroin and crack cocaine, things like that. Those drugs should be dealt with very heavy handedly. But other than that, sort of the softer drugs, I don't really have a problem with. But again, if we're going to take into the healthcare system, I think that we should nationalize healthcare, but there's going to be a huge list of caveats to that. If you have any preventable diseases, like if you're a smoker, if you're a drug user, if you have alcohol related disease from alcohol abuse, if you're overweight, you don't get access to any things. You have to be a taxpayer, you have to be productive, and you can't have any of these preventable illnesses. Now, as far as drug addiction that makes people unproductive, I think that throwing them in jail is not productive. They need some kind of treatment to put them back out on the streets. I would like to try one big weed, please. Yeah, just don't let your children use drugs or be involved in drug culture, then they'll be fine. And the people who push this shit are actually should be our focus. We should be going after the dealers and the producers. Oh yeah, what about Coca-Cola? So the problem with processed sugar, there's multiple issues when it comes to health. One, we've in the early 20th century, we started putting iodine in salt rather than in flour. That's the reason why salty foods are killing us, is because we need iodine to survive, and we have cravings for salt where the iodine is. If you put it back in flour, I believe that we'd have less of a problem with the sodium intake. Now, as far as sugar is concerned, processed white granulated sugar is literal poison and shouldn't be allowed to be sold without extremely heavy taxes on it. It's things like Coca-Cola. We don't want that toxic garbage.
Yeah, no, our kids don't. It's pretty much like if you wouldn't want your children ingesting it, then it's just best not to have it.
Fanta will be allowed for old times' sakes. Yeah.
Never liked Fanta. And
No,
I always, God damn those commercials. Don't you want to Fanta?
anyone who ingests the carbonated Jew has no place in the ethnostate.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, yeah, maybe an exception, like, once a year or something for like a Mr. Pibb.
Well, again, this goes back to the whole family culture thing. If you just keep your children from developing a sugar addiction, we won't have to worry about this. But I think there should be heavy taxes on the overproduction of granulated sugar products. It's like companies that get tax breaks for producing soda. I mean, it should be the opposite. They should be slapped with like a 50% sin tax or something like that, just because it's such a huge fucking problem. It used to not be like that. People could just, oh yeah, I'm gonna go down to the Coke shop and have a Coca-Cola and then not have another one for a week or two. It's like that's how it used to be, because we had culture and shaming and things like this, and we had people who were actually exercising. But
well, and the market is just flooded, right? Like if you wanted a soda, you wanted a malt, whatever it was, you had to go to the specific place and get it. I mean, obviously it just, the market did become oversaturated where everywhere that you go, for the most part, there's always an option. There's always an option for soda. There's always an option for just, anything that's really unhealthy.
yeah, we should encourage a cult of fitness. Is fascism a death cult? It says, and are dead. No, it's not a death cult. If you're thinking about people like Adamhoffen and shit, they're just Satanists LARPing as fascists. They don't know anything about third position politics. No, there's not going to be a McDonald's in every street corner.
Oh boy. Let's see what the chat is saying.
Yeah, fascism is a life cult. Yeah. Should women be treated equal in the ethnostate? Define equal, because men and women aren't equal by design.
Exactly. Well, and I mean, I'm sure, one of the things would be what? Equal voting rights? No, they shouldn't have equal voting rights.
I'll have you know that women are property, okay?
To some extent, women are property, right?
I mean, if I was a woman, I would rather be in the olden days where women were property, because you were protected from a lot of shit.
Exactly. And the better that you treat your woman, right, the more, like you said, the more okay she will be, with being your property. Like I like to be my guy's property. And to some extent, he's my property.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a two-way street.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a lot of oy veys.
What will we do with Emily Yukis in the ethnostate? She's allowed in. She's fine. She's a bit of a memester, but she's allowed in.
We might keep a little surveillance on her, make sure that she's she's good, she's cool, she's calm, and no, but she seems nice. I don't know if we'll have her like kind of doing any type of like children's cartoons at first, but no, she seems really nice. I think it'd be interesting to have a conversation with her for sure.
I wouldn't call it a cult of martyrdom. It's a warrior cult. It's a warrior. It's the traditional warrior spirit that all pagan cultures had at one point. Don't ever touch my fucking Coca-Cola. Tea millennial woes.
Oh,
that's funny.
That was good.
No, I'm not going to put any restrictions on food, but we are going to have a cult of fitness, which essentially means that if you're in shape, if you're physically in shape, you get access to the healthcare system that's publicly funded. You also get tax breaks. You will also, I think what was the other thing? So you get access to publicly funded healthcare system if you're in shape below a certain weight. You'll get tax breaks and incentives for being within a certain weight. So there's lots of positive things that you can do to people that don't infringe on their ability to just like kind of live their lives. Like a lot of people talk about, oh, well, state enforced workout programs. It's like, and people aren't really motivated to do that, right? So if you just let them do it on their own time and then just put a little bit of red tape on it at the end, it's much more efficient.
Well, and I mean, we have to make those that physical appearance desirable again. I mean, because it already is to some extent, right? But the way that the media is pushing it, and the way that academia is pushing it with this body positivity, where the more unhealthy you are, the more special you are. You're not sick. You're not.
In fact, I would put it that once someone reaches 400 pounds, the state has the right to seize them and put them on a workout plan, put them in
Yeah,
fat camp. We're gonna have state sanctioned fat camp nationalism. So
they can concentrate on being skinny again. That's
yeah,
what they're gonna be doing.
some steroids should be outlawed. The ones that like make your balls shrivel up and shit like that, because those are dangerous to people's physical health. But other things, steroids have other like medical uses as well. So an outright blanket ban, I think, is low IQ.
Yeah. I mean, anabolic steroids, that's one thing, but prednisone and other types of anti-inflammatory medications, that's totally different.
Right.
So
Yeah. A Sad Tiger says, do you write down these solutions? Yes, I've been codifying a political platform for my eventual attempt at running for actual political office. So, and I'm going to be sitting down with some other like-minded thinkers later, and we're going to throw some solutions around, and eventually I'll have a codified political platform for everybody.
Mimir 2024.
I won't be eligible then, but maybe after a while. The physically fit shall inherit the Ethnostate. Yep. Pretty much. Get out there running with the folk.
Yeah. Hi, Avalon. I hope you're well.
Let's see. Results-oriented workout. Fitness is a social construct. Pretty much. I mean, can't say I disagree, but will there be a separation of church and state? Yes, there will be a separation of church and state, although it's not going to be the same way in which you think of it now. In fact, we're going to be pro-church, but it's not going to affect how the state runs its policies. Like, we're not going to have religiously mandated, gay conversion camps, right? It's ridiculous, because it's going to be, because we put the race first, there's going to be multiple denominations of religious faiths within the society. So allowing one to take over the state just causes disunity, which is the exact opposite of what we want.
Exactly.
Have you thought about writing a book yourself? Yeah, I've thought about it, but I mean, it would be pretty sure to be more like a pamphlet. Like right now, I could put everything I know down into a single book, but it'd be pretty nonsensical, and I like to structure things. Welcome to the Ethnostate.
Right.
Yeah.
Go outside.
Is Iran fascist, or at least fascistic? No, they're a theocracy, which is inherently different from fascism, if you want to get autistic about it.
Will usury be illegal?
Oh, of course.
I'd like it. Yeah, absolutely. It's probably one of the things that would trigger. It could definitely trigger a war, right? Even if some way we were able to peacefully separate with some things, then yeah. I mean, how did that work out for Germany? Kayla, do you have a cat? I do have a cat. I have 2 cats, 2 brothers.
What about mandatory military service?
Yeah.
Again, the thing here is that, like, as much as I'd like it, there are some cases you'd have to be pretty lenient on it, because I think that a 2-year military service at the age of 18 greatly disrupts some young men's lives, where it's better served that they're off in a trade, providing for their family, or starting a family in the first place. I think that if there should be access to youth movements like the Boy Scouts, it's now been corrupted, and it should be state financed, or at least tax incentivized by the state to have these programs. But for the most part, if you're going to have some kind of military service, there needs to be a way for people to opt out of it if they're working, if they have a family, if they're going into a trade skill of some kind. I think there's too many caveats for there to be a mandated military service.
Well, and I was talking with Ray Plexus about this. He's in the chat, or he was. I saw him, but we were kind of talking about education and so forth, and whether during high school years it should be like a military boarding school for young men, right. And during the middle school years to have it almost be kind of half education, and then, traditional education, and then the other half being like a Boy Scouts program where you start to integrate, this level of regiment, this level of survival skills of preparing them to be young men. And
in fact, it'd probably be good if we took, like, let's say that there's a state mandated summer time period, which I'm against. But if there was something like that, you could have young people go to like mandated fitness or education camps during their off time. But again, I really wouldn't want to do that to people.
Well, and even when I hear military service, like mandatory military service, I naturally just go towards the militarized border. So you'd kind of have almost like the something along the lines of Hungary's border patrol. And
military service or not, young men should receive paramilitary training in some form. Yeah, it would actually be a part of school curriculum to learn about military tactics. This is how education obviously is extremely important and will be mandated, but military service is something completely different, especially in the way that we view it in today's world. But to get a military cult going in the state needs to be done through the family and through the education system. So yeah, as far as the education system is concerned, it's going to be very pragmatic. But for men, there will be a focus at least some point when they turn like 13, 14 years old. It's like, hey, here's real military history. Here's what it's like to serve in the military. On the weekends, we have a voluntary military training camp or whatever. And if the culture is correct, then most boys would want to join up with it anyway.
Well, and there was an interesting idea that was put out, which is during high school years, right? You kind of use a bit of like your intelligence services to find young, smart nationalist men and actually start to teach them and train them to possibly hold political office.
Right.
Interesting.
In fact, I would have when in the final days of education, when you're 17, 18 years old, that you engage in some type of firearms training course. Like, you have the last hour of your day for weapons training and things like that in the education system. No need for military service at that point, because as soon as someone leaves the education system, they need to get right to work. And if they want to join the military, they can. But having this forced military service, I think, is a detriment to some people's life. Because, I mean, nowadays it's so fast. You don't have time to waste. You need to get right up and get going into the economic system. Let's see.
No, there should be different programs for young men after high school. Absolutely. I mean, like you said, not everyone will fit or will actually benefit as much from military service as they would with other things. And, one of the ways that we've lost our way with the education system is that everyone is treated exactly the same. Men,
Right.
Are very bright in certain fields, are not picked out anymore and encouraged or given an ability to actually go forward in those specific fields. There's no tailored education system anymore.
And I've talked about bullying. If you haven't seen the video, it's about a week ago, I think, week or two ago, we talked about bullying. Let's see. What was that other question? Start them younger on firearms. Tom, yeah, I agree. The family should, the father is the one that should start them on firearms at a young age, 4 to 5, 6 years old.
Yes.
But as far as the state is concerned, the state has access to military tech that the general populace generally won't have access to due to economic circumstances and some regulations. So the father, should give his son a 22 caliber rifle when he turns 5 or 6, teach him appropriately how to use it. And by the time he reaches 16, 17 years old, the state hands him a military grade weapon and says, hey, now you're going to train with this. So regardless of, how what the economic situation of the family is, they still have an opportunity to learn. I think JM asked what editing software I use. I use Shotcut for the most part, but if I do something fancy, I'll use After Effects. Yeah, Sad Tiger, that's true. A lot of people need to jump right into higher education. Yeah, and the modern education system doesn't incentivize young men to grow into masculine men. That's true.
No, it is definitely overly feminized, right? It is in its own way almost a matriarchy, though. The entire, at least, K through 12 is definitely a matriarchy.
Yep.
And you need men to teach men and be there during the developmental years of their lives, even outside of the family. You need role models. And there are a lot of young men that, kind of say, well, we've never been taught what a man is, what the purpose of a man is, what the roles of a man is. And so,
Yeah, they think masculinity is drinking beer and eating chicken wings and watching, a poop on the TV. That's not what it is.
right, it's not simply about, getting laid or, because there is a big pickup artist culture or, now, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy in the long term.
Yep. No circumcisions in the ethnostate. I agree. No Jewish covenants. I remember you said race mixing is an exception, but it seems it's quite common. Are you sure? What are you referring to? It's not as common as people think, to be honest. But as far as I'm concerned, if a white person in the ethnostate wants to mix with a non-white, that's fine, but they're going to be held in the same cultural shaming light, and they may be subject to deportation at that point, at some time in the future. And yeah, among whites, it's the least common. That's definitely true. What will we do with the soy boys in the ethnostate? Well, they can either nut up or shut up. No place for PUA degenerates in the ethnostate. They'll get their comeuppance. I don't know if it's 9%. I don't think it's that high. Yeah, I think it's around 5 to 7%, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something where clearly race mixing is not as high as the like media would like us to believe, right? That entertainment would like us to believe, and that's why they have to push it so much as well. They
Yeah.
want to, in a way, gaslight the public into thinking everyone and your mother and your friends are doing this. It's not the case.
Yeah, and for Tom's question or his suggestion there, yeah, I think the state should mandate certain cognitive function tests for people who want to get into university. That way, university systems remain as elite as possible.
Yes.
Thoughts on weed? Yeah, we talked about it a little while ago, like 30 minutes ago, I think. Let's see. Okay, the final thing that I wanted to clarify was about the capital of the ethnostate. The capital isn't super important, but some people had a problem with me keeping the capital in Washington D.C. I would keep it in Washington D.C. for a period of about 10 years until we take control over um, another major city that's in a better defensible position. I would actually be in favor of putting it in New Chicago, probably renaming it from Chicago, of course. Once we clean out the shanty towns and rebuild the city, and a period of about 10 years, and then moving and building whole new capital systems, we'd have these beautiful, fascistic buildings built up. No more of this sort of Greco-Roman style. What's the architecture style called? Neo revivalism or some shit like that. We'll have these brand new beautiful classical buildings built up in New Chicago. I think Chicago is actually in a pretty strategic position. It's got access to open waters. It's sort of in the middle of my borders of the ethnostate. It's got access to certain resources. It's the central hub of the northern Midwest as far as the highway system is concerned as well. So you have constant access to these open roads. Is it neoclassical? Oh, I'm sorry. Neoclassicist buildings. That's correct.
Hmm.
How would you name the countries? The West can keep the USA name. Yeah, it's like I said. The United States can just take that. The USA 2.0 can use the name the United States. That's fine. I don't know what we would call the white ethnostate. That'd be a decision for the people involved at the time.
Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel.
I mean, you know what they say, about Cracker Barrel, right? Last stand of implicit white identity.
I don't know. The Cracker Barrel around my house, there's lots of Mexicans that go there.
They're taking the Cracker Barrel?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
Well,
So you're a fan of rationalist architecture? I really like the style of. Oh god, I have to pull it up. I have it saved on Twitter. Maybe I'll do a video about that. We'll do a video about architecture and what I prefer, but there is a particular style that I think is really nice, and it's not brutalism. It's not any of this other garbage.
I kind of like the colonial look.
Yeah,
I kind of I like the plantation, a little bit of that plantation style. But
let's go back to Gothic. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
it's weird. The first word I thought of was it's very epic looking.
Okay, this is epic.
Yes, exactly.
JM says I first started getting turned off libertarianism when some Ron Pauler said to me that the idea that cities can be planned was flawed. Like, nigga, are you serious? Yeah, of course cities can be planned. That's the whole fucking point.
Yeah.
We just have to have non-retarded city planners and politicians in there, and it needs to not be lobbied by the government or not lobbied by corporations. That's why some of our cities are so fucked up.
And there will be no lobbying in the ethnostate. That would be one of my stipulations. I
Yeah,
don't like
Victorian
the
is also
idea of
nice.
anything like that.
And yeah, James, there was just a study came out that showed that people raised in a rural environment amongst livestock had less allergies and they were less prone to certain types of diseases and the common cold and the flu and things like that.
Yeah, you've got to make sure, you take some mud and you just smear it on your kid a little bit. Make them, make sure they're just playing in the dirt. It actually helps.
As much as I like French architecture, we need to go our own way in some kind of neoclassicist American style. So, will black rap be allowed in the ethnostate? These are the real questions.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
the rap music labels will all be disbanded. They can all go to the US 2.0. I'm not in favor of any of that street monkey music staying in. Although, again, I'm not going to go after people and have like music death squads kicking in doors, listen for, you know, people listening to Chief Keef or whatever.
Yeah, what about like Mr. Bond?
As much as I don't like the musical style, he can keep doing it. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm always trying to find music that's not subject to copyright. And so I
Mm,
tried playing him in one of my streams, and there was a little bit of a split in the chat.
right. Will vaccines be allowed in the ethnostate? Some, but not all, and it's not going to be so heavily encouraged as it is today because some things we're creating super viruses for, so we have to be very careful about it. We need to do more research on it. But some vaccines are okay.
Yeah, like polio. So that's a good vaccine to have.
Right. Is a round Earth allowed in the ethnostate?
Hmm.
Yes. No flat earthers allowed. We'll shoot them into space.
Well, we'll just tell them to, we'll just push them off the edge, right?
Yeah, we'll send them to the edge. Okay, well, that's all the questions I had. I think we're going to close out the stream. And Kayla, are you still going to be streaming in a few minutes?
I'm thinking about it. I've got to see what Pravada is saying. I don't know if he's lined up a guest for later on tonight, but yeah, we'll see about it. Let's see. I'm gonna show my stuff up for once. Like for once, it feels weird. I kind of feel icky, but Big Cat Kalo live streams, and yeah, everyone is encouraged to go there. We have nice streams, very similar, to Mimir's. A little more discombobulated, to be honest. His are nice and organized. But yes, I'll throw my link in the. Oh, well, do you think you could give me a wrench for a second, and then I'll just throw.
Sure. Post in the
Yeah,
chat.
and then you can take it away. I only need it for a second.
Yeah, no wrenches in this stream, guys. You can say whatever you want.
There you go.
I don't see it.
Oh, I have to type in the chat real fast.
Yeah, just put like test or something in there.
Yeah. And test. There we go.
There we go. Put user in timeout.
All
Okay, now you're a mod. You can post
right.
the link.
Um, oh, there we go. Okay. Control V. There we go. And thank you. Now you can de-wrench me. Oh, thank you guys. Yeah, I feel so weird. Like saying go to my channel. It's
Nah, that's fine. We're gonna shut down the stream here so they can go. Everyone go over and check out Big Cat Kayla. The link is in the chat right now. Subbed, good. Get everybody go sub.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for coming out to the stream, everybody. We're hitting what numbers I would expect, somewhere around 80 to 90 people. Let's see if we can hit 100 sometime soon. So spread the stream around.
Yes, I mean, I don't know. I think these streams are really good, and like I said, yours contain content that are really beneficial, not just to kind of feeling good, but actually as well as there is planning, there's clear thought, and it's very nice. Gosh, I don't know what happens. I get around you, Mimir, and my brain just says, nope, he's the big brain here. You're just like it takes a nap. I don't know what's happening. So
well, that's what happens to women when they get in my presence.
it's gotta be
They become
my
followers.
lady brain just gets activated. I don't know.
All right. Well, all right, chat. Take it easy. Again, Discord is in the link if you want to come talk to me. Make sure you join that shit. And I'll see you later.
Have a